On January 30th, 3058, when the flotilla of Clan Jade Falcon jump ships leapt into the Endegene system in the Lyran Commonwealth, the Falcons were undertaking more than just a military campaign. After 5 years of clan infighting and seemingly endless intrigue with Clan Wolf and the loss of IlClan Elias Critchell, the new Falcon Khan, Martha Pride, was determined to revitalize her clan. With renewed purpose, Clan Jade Falcon was to expand its military and political strength at the expense of the vulnerable Lyran Commonwealth. Khan Pride had vastly expanded the Falcon Sibcos, streamlined logistics, and ordered expanded production of existing Falcon industries along with new battlemech designs. Along with the expected mechs, aerospace fighters, battle armor, and huge piles of ammunition brought into Lyran space in 3058, a new Omni-Mech was also packed into the holds of those dropships. It was hoped that this 35-ton machine would help shift the balance of battlefield power and initiative back into the hands of the aggressors. It was a big job for a little Omni-Mech. Let's see how the Cougar fared when it was tossed into the fray. Greta thumbed the trigger for her heavy particle projection cannon, and almost immediately she could feel the engine's heat rising through the floor. The Cougar shuddered again under Greta's shot as she lunged closer to it. The clan pilot must have finally thought better of its focus on the Thunderhawk, because the Cougar turned to face Greta and spat a staccato stream of beams and missiles into the onrushing gauntlet. One missile exploded against Greta's canopy, not penetrating, but leaving a spiderweb in the middle of the ferroglass. 1000, Shrapnel number 12, page 212, by Rob Schubert. When Khan Pride's orders went out to create a new and terrifying machine for clan warriors, the scientist cast knew the score. At this point in Omni-Mech development, many of the tried and true designs already in existence had been refined to the point that there wasn't much more to squeeze out of them. So the decision was made to take an existing design, in this case the Eadeh, and redesign the chassis around a smaller 175 JF Extra Light Fusion engine. Dropping down from the Eadeh's 210 XL engine would result in a lower top speed, obviously, but it would buy precious mass for use elsewhere. This new Omni-Mech was to succeed or fail through its use of overwhelming firepower, not speed or necessarily durability. The Cougar pushed the opportunity cost pendulum toward pod space and then held it there to see what would happen. With a top speed of just 86 km per hour, the Cougar was intended to be more of a stalking menace than a swift scout. This was reinforced by the inclusion of just 5.5 tons of ferrofibrous armor, providing 105 points of protection, a full ton less than the possible for a 35-ton mech and a half-ton less than the Eadeh's. With no built-in jump jets, 10 double heat sinks, and the usual superfluous gyro and cockpit, that left the Cougar with 19 tons of mass to devote to pod space. That was roughly a 19% increase over the Eadeh's 15.5 and opened some possibilities for loadouts that weren't previously available for a 35-ton Omni. This was the gamble that the Falcons were willing to take. The prime configuration for the Cougar was deliberately heavy-hitting. The twin arm-mounted large pulse lasers offered powerful and accurate fire which the Cougar could keep up for multiple turns before needing to worry about heat buildup. Of course, the prime also carried a pair of long-range missile 10 racks split between the side torsos, which added even more all-ranges oomph to the mech's attacks. The 1 ton of ammunition for each launcher was plenty considering your average Cougar's lifespan on the battlefield. Armed with the Cougar and a bevy of other upgraded treats, the Jade Falcons descended upon Lyran worlds in 3058 in quick succession thanks to 4 separate lines of attack which hit planets like Endegene, Narrabuk, and Bucklands before quickly moving on. The angle of attack into Lyran space, along with the fact that they were avoiding nearby systems and even skipping over likely next stops, made it obvious the Falcons were heading toward a specific target. After Ellengurg and Gautavita fell, it wasn't difficult to infer that the next target was Coventry. But why Coventry? Besides the planet's status as a regional capital and having a temperate climate, Coventry was the home of one of the Lyran Commonwealth's biggest concentrations of defense manufacturers and mining conglomerates. Though the planet had started out as an agricultural powerhouse, the discovery of large deposits of valuable ore and minerals made the next steps obvious for enterprising industrialists and their investors. Companies like Coventry Metalworks covered the planet's 4 continents and produced everything from consumer goods to battle mechs. It was a plunderer's paradise, and the Jade Falcons wanted some of it. However, this wasn't their only motivation. Hobbling Lyran defense production was nice, and to be able to fill your dropships with loot is great too, but one of Khan Pride's other goals was to give her forces the opportunity to learn and refine their skills against Inner Sphere armies. She understood that assaulting Coventry would require a strong Lyran response. When the Falcon jumpships entered the Coventry system at pirate points and the detached dropships burned hard for the planet's surface, the Lyran defenders prepared as best they could. While they had no shortage of equipment and ammunition thanks to the domestically produced stocks that were nearly infinite, the quality of the soldiers tasked in the defense was a little lacking. Additionally, many of the battle mechs retained on site were older models, as the latest and greatest machines to walk off the assembly lines were quickly packed away into dropships and sent to eager buyers. Being so far from the front lines, Coventry was seen as a cushy posting for social generals and those long past their prime. This led to early successes for the Jade Falcons as they landed outside of Port St. William in March of 3058. She looked back the other way. Long-range rockets racked the Uller. By lucky chance, or wizard aim, for Malvina had picked the cream of the battle-seasoned descent to return with her to Sudeten. Dazzling ruby needles from the Cougar's left arm stitched a line of glowing, head-sized craters in the onrushing Uller's frontal armor and slagged a huge hole in its forward view screen. A quarter second later, the right arm laser sent a pulse right into the squat forward-thrust head, filling it with hell-red glare. Still at a full run, the pursuing mech toppled to its right. It slammed against the side of an administrative dome, rolled vertically across the reinforced ferrocrete facade as if pirouetting. Then it sprawled in the street, rolling, bouncing. A Rending of Falcons, page 112, by Victor Milon. The other original configurations for the Cougar offered more niche loadouts that fit particular mission profiles. The A configuration, for example, carried twin LRM-20s in the side torsos, each aided by the Artemis 4 fire control systems that improved the accuracy of each shot. When you only have 12 shots per launcher, each one has to count. Backing up the LRMs at mid and short range were a pair of ER medium lasers, split between the arms, and with the remaining ton, an emotional support small pulse laser was installed into the open head critical. The A configuration may appear like a fire support build, but keep in mind that without a minimum firing range, those clan LRMs are a threat all the time at any distance. A Cougar A is a serious threat all the time. Heat generation is only a minor issue if you're really going at it, but most of the time just let off on one of the ER medium lasers and it's fine. This is all fine. If you like the idea of shilling out large amounts of damage but aren't that into missiles, as if there is such a person, one could consider the B configuration instead. It's focused on a pair of ER particle projection cannons split between the arms, which offered their potent 15 damage out to 23 hexes. In order to mitigate the prolific heat production of both weapons, 6 additional heat sinks were added to the mech, filling up most of the remaining critical locations. The only other addition was an ER medium laser into the head, which is always nice to have in the heat of the moment. Pun intended. Running and gunning in the B configuration is heat neutral so long as the ER medium laser is held in reserve. For those who find themselves on the business end of the Cougar B, that means having to deal with 2 ER PPC shots every turn until you do something about it, like hit it with a big rock or something. If you're still not a happy camper, the C configuration offers a shot across the bow with the installation of a Gauss rifle in the left arm and fed by 2 tons of ammunition stored in the left torso. I'd have put them in the left arm to offer up the chance to save the rifle from a critical hit, but I was like 9 when the FASA guys came up with it, so I didn't get any input on it. With the remaining 5 tons of pod space, the C configuration was given 5 ER medium lasers, 4 set into the right arm and the 5th installed into the head open critical. While firing all of them along with a Gauss rifle every turn while on the run is definitely a sometimes treat, the overall possible damage from such an alpha strike is a tantalizing 50, not too shabby for a 35-tonner. The last of the original configurations was the D, and it was a little bit of everything build that included an Ultra AC-10 autocannon in the right arm fed by 2 tons of ammunition, an ER large laser set into the left arm, and a pair of short-range missile forelaunchers split between the side torsos and fed from a single ton of ammo. Heat generation is only a minor issue, and the short-range damage is impressive at a possible 46 if all the SRMs and the double tap from the AC-10 hit, but most of the time my luck isn't that good. At full throttle again, he found cover as the second verse blared over the comm. The Black Condor's lasers pulsed like a light show, benefiting the music, driving Charlie forward. Command vehicles, mechs, Aero 4 launchers, nothing was safe from their gaze. Unfortunately, the Black Condor was not the invincible hero from the song. The mech was heating up while weapons fire spewed in from all directions. Enemy mechs, turrets, and even infantry poured fire toward the Cougar, trying to prevent it from taking its prize. Before long, the Black Condor was limping while unleashing as much fire as he could. The Last Flight of the Black Condor, Shrapnel No. 10, by Matthew Cross. As the Jade Falcons descended upon Coventry, the defenders were initially incapable of mustering a successful defense against the invaders. There were efforts by the 10th Sky Rangers and others to make the fight as painful as possible for the Falcons. A secondary source described the first moments when an artillery barrage was called in to try to stem the tide. "I'll never forget the sound of those shells coming over. It sounded like some lunatic animal howling in pain and hunting the one who hurt it. The infantry corporal was either very good or very lucky, because the first barrage landed slam on top of the Falcons' position. A couple of the light Omni-Mechs got trashed by the blasts, and the rest had some armor scrubbed off. I'm told that a full star of elementals was decimated by shells that detonated right above their position. 2 more barrages hit before my lance spotted the clanners. The second landed no more than 100 meters away from my mech. I guess that's what they call danger close. After that, the battle turned into a close-range slugging match." Excerpted from The Affair at Coventry, a fictionalized account by Oyana Galbach, Cavalier Publishing Company, 3059. When the Falcon Jaegers assaulted the Coventry Military Academy, cadets fought alongside their instructors against the clanners who descended upon them. By all accounts, the fighting was ferocious, with both sides learning valuable lessons about the reality of modern warfare. The clan technology smashed up against the duty and desperation of the Lyrans, and the result was that both sides left the ruins of the Academy bloodied and considerably smaller. While the Lyrans were busy across the entire planet, the most valuable loot was to be found within the Coventry Metalworks main processing complex. The honor of leading the assault fell onto the shoulders of Star Colonel Devin Buchalan's Gyrfalcon IRE cluster. These were not grizzled veterans, but actually Falcon warriors fresh out of the Sibcos. The assault on Coventry Metalworks was to be their trial of position. That's one heck of a trial by fire. Dropping outside of the complex, the Falcons marched into the fray, harassed the whole time by aerospace elements from the Coventry Aerospace Defense Force. A Clan Broadsword-class dropship was isolated and hammered so hard that it was rendered into burning scrap. The Falcons returned fire with everything they had, and eventually the CADF was forced to return to base. The damage done, the attack had already been delayed by half an hour, and the Falcons took more than the expected level of casualties. That time was well utilized by the defenders, who were able to shift resources to prepare for the land assault on the Coventry Metals complex. The resulting slugfest saw the Coventry militia do better than expected against the Jade Falcons, who suffered due to their lack of experience. Eventually, the fight broke down into the equivalent of a grand melee, with small units fighting anything that came near in a frantic bid for survival. When Star Colonel Buchalan ran into Commandant Payman in the field, they stalked each other in a violent back and forth for nearly 3 minutes before a militia firestarter interrupted by spraying Buchalan's man-of-war with his flamers, forcing the Jade Falcon to eject to avoid dying in the conflagration. Any semblance of restraint was lost when the Firestarter turned its heavy machine guns on the now dispossessed Star Colonel. Enraged, the Falcons pressed their attack, and moments later a Clan Lucifer aerospace fighter strafed both the militia Firestarter and the Commandant's Banshee. The Firestarter was obliterated in the airstrike, and Peyton's mech was disabled, with its cockpit breached. It was reported that Payman bled out, waiting for rescue. In the end, the Jade Falcons took the field and pushed the Lyrans and Coventry militia back into retreat. However, the victory was a Pyrrhic one, as the casualty numbers for the Green Jade Falcon warriors pushed over 65%. Unable to secure a decisive victory over Port St. William, Coventry Metalworks, or the Coventry Military Academy, the entire planetary assault began to slow and gave the Lyrans the opportunity to regroup and prepare for a long, grueling guerrilla campaign. While the attack on Coventry would continue, the arrival of Wolf's Dragoons, Waco Rangers, and the Eridani Light Horse would drastically shift the power back into the hands of the Lyrans. Ultimately, Khan Pride was forced to request Hegira after Clan Wolf, in an act so predictable that you could set your watch to it, threatened to invade Clan Jade Falcon worlds if the incursion didn't halt. Good old Clan Wolf, you can always trust them to store their knives in your back. Germany presented quite a challenge for Delta Galaxy to conquer. Among the defenders in Frankfurt was the Republic's 110th Assault Regiment, commanded by Sir Ludwig Jabbar. Thodin's Sender Star took heavy fire on a failed flanking maneuver. Artillery shells destroyed the mechs on either side of him, but left Thodin's Jade Phoenix unscathed, but aching for revenge. Ordering his light elements to observe, they taunted the artillery battery for having missed him, then held positions as another round of shells came in. As this barrage subsequently missed, a light star of Cougars and Hierofalcons triangulated and honed in on the battery, leaving Thodin to deal with the dolaire of Captain Genevieve Dutoit, who thought herself his equal. IlClan Sourcebook, page 150. Following the Falcon incursion, the Cougar production continued and it became Clan Jade Falcon's primary light support Omnimech. Though mechs like the Kit Fox still scurried around, it was clear that the clan had a new favorite. Starting in 3061, the next series of official configurations highlighted technological and tactical development in the Inner Sphere. Production of the Cougar would continue in the Inner Sphere, especially after the Jade Falcons made their move from the clan homeworlds. The Cougar H configuration relied upon an Ultra AC-5 autocannon set into the left arm and aided by a targeting computer to carry most of the weight. 3 medium-heavy lasers in the right arm offered their powerful punch at short range, and they were also aided by that targeting computer. 4 pod jump jets added to the H config gave it a welcome agility boost, and finally an ECM suite added to the open-head critical location makes this our first Operation Sneaky Sneak Cougar of the day. Watch out, college guys. Keep your heads on a swivel. She'll get ya. 3 additional double heat sinks round out the build and make it possible to fire all 3 heavy-medium lasers while on the run and not go up like a Roman candle. In fact, so long as the Cougar H stays on the ground, it can alpha strike while running and not worry about overheating. Jump jetting while alpha striking can max out that cooling capability, but even then it's only heat neutral. While the H configuration is a nice test bed for medium-heavy lasers matched with the targeting computer, it lacks the punch that we've grown accustomed to with our noble Cougar. Let's see what's next. In 3063, the obligatory Advanced Tactical Missile configuration arrived in the form of the Cougar E. It carried 2 ATM-6 racks split between the arms and fed from their own dedicated 3 tons of ammunition alongside them. 3 ER medium lasers set into the side torsos and head, along with 3 additional heat sinks rounded out the build. It's deceptively simple, though those ATMs offer their usual flexibility. If split evenly between the 3 ammunition types, the ATM helps the Cougar E become a problem all the time. At mid and short range, the damage potential is solid, if somewhat diluted in comparison to heavy hitters like the Prime and B configurations. Similar to the H configuration, the E config works as a testbed for the ATM launchers. But unless you can get into close range and unleash the fury of the high explosive rounds, you might leave the fight a little disappointed in its performance. The Shrike rocked. The Cougar raced widdershins across the paved vehicle yard, the large pulse lasers in its arms stitching black roses left side. From Malvina's right, the Bellona's big laser hacked at the armor of arm and side like a great red sword, leaving gaping, glowing wounds. Had her attackers coordinated their efforts this well from the outset, she would be dead now. As it was. A Rending of Falcons, page 166, by Victor Milan. It wouldn't be until 3071 until we saw another official Cougar config. The F config embraced the power of AND by installing not 2 or 4 or even 6, but 8 heavy machine guns split between the left and right arms in a pair of arrays. The MGs fed from a half-ton of ammunition stored in the left torso, with its traditional OmniMech case protection. Adding to the short-range fray, 3 medium pulse lasers were added to the config as well as a Streak short-range missile 4 rack. The damage numbers continued to climb, but the designers weren't finished. Identifying the risk involved in closing in on squishy infantry, a pair of B-pods were split between the side torsos, which, if you're unfamiliar, are like giant claymore mines which will ruin the recipient's entire day if caught in the blast. While obviously intended for short-range fights, ideally against infantry, light vehicles, and battle armor, the Cougar F could also be a menace toward other light mechs if employing the medium pulse lasers before closing in for the kill with the machine guns. The Cougar F is a nasty little bugger, but definitely more of a niche one. Mechs that ignore it and let it get into their 6 could be in for a very bad day. Also in 3071, the Cougar G configuration demonstrated that the desire to cram as big a rifle as possible into a light battle mech is not exclusive to Inner Sphere designers. The Hyper Assault Gauss Rifle 20 dominates the configuration along with its 2 tons of ammunition. However, the ER large laser set into the head of all places is a good pairing for the Hags as their range profiles are almost the same. The ER large laser could provide the punch and the Hag 20 could capitalize upon any rents or holes in the armor created by the laser. Is this a peanut butter and jelly situation? Are we through the looking glass, people? Oh, I've always wanted to be through the looking glass. Oh, let it be so. Before we take the long leap down the timeline, we do need to visit Olivetti weaponry on Sudeten. As it turned out, the Jade Falcons were not idle, and those who are fans of the Dark Age know that Falcon battlemechs start to get really creative. The Cougar experimental refit program started in 3070, and within a year a prototype designated the Cougar XR was ready for testing. The mech underwent significant structural changes which required hard-locking components and leaving the XR a standard battlemech rather than an Omni. The overall look of the mech was changed primarily through the addition of the experimental partial wing, which gave the mech an even more skulking bird-like appearance. The partial wing added +2 jump MP to the battlemech's existing jump jets, pushing the overall movement profile to 587 in a standard atmosphere. The wing also provided an additional -3 heat if the mech leaps that turn. 10 double heat sinks otherwise keep the mech cool, and 7 tons of reflective armor were added to reduce damage from incoming energy weapons. This was seen as a great option for light mechs, which found life troubling in a world where so many battle mechs were rocking pulse lasers. The final structural change was the use of an Inner Sphere grade small cockpit, which wasn't needed to buy critical locations, but it did shed a ton of mass from the mech. Who needs to be able to stretch out their legs anyway, right? The Cougar's boosted agility came at the cost of weaponry, but not as much as one might imagine after adding 4.5 tons of jump jets and partial wing. The ER medium pulse laser in the right arm is arguably the primary weapon, though it is backed up by 2 LRM-15 launchers split between the side torsos and aided by Artemis V fire control systems. Each launcher fed from its own devoted ton of ammunition. Thankfully, the mech's side torsos still technically have built-in case, though it's no longer officially an OmniMech. If you need a refresher on the Artemis V, attacks from these launchers apply a -1 to hit modifier boost and add +3 to rolls on the cluster hits table. The strong selling point was definitely the ability to leap great distances and fire all 3 weapons from the XR consistently without significant heat buildup. This leaping Cougar could be a big problem until you are finally able to land enough lucky shots to bring it down. Though it looks fragile at a glance, not being able to effectively use energy weapons against it limited traditional solutions to light mechs. It's unclear from the available information if the Cougar XR ever really went into full production, though it's safe to infer that the lessons learned through the XR project are likely aided the creation of other newer designs that employed the partial wing. She let the momentum of her turn carry her to the west side of the street, moving her clear of the Ocelot's fire, but not the Cougar's. She caught one beam on her shield, melting some of it away. Soon it would be about as effective a defense as Swiss cheese. The second beam from the Cougar caught her in the right leg, just below the knee. Her damage monitor showed the leg actuator to be singed, but functional. It had better be. The last thing she could afford to lose was her legs. Because her enemies were using their lasers, Denai decided it was only fair to return the favor. The Cougar stood right in front of her, so she let it feel the full blast from her large laser. Principles of Desolation, page 136, by Jason M. Hardi and Randall N. Bills. Our next official configuration wouldn't hit the battlefields until 3099, and it once again functions as a demonstration of new technology. In this case, a pair of large improved heavy lasers were split between the arms and offered their substantial 16 damage per shot for anyone who wandered too close. 15 hexes for those who are wondering. The iConfig also benefited from a right torso supercharger that could push the Cougar's movement profile up to 5-10-0 in short bursts. 2 LRM-10s were set into the side torsos and each had their own dedicated ton of ammunition. Finally, an emotional support micro pulse laser was added to the head open critical location, and who can't appreciate the opportunity to stay warm and cozy when out on a frigid campaign. 3 additional double heat sinks were added to the config to help partially mitigate the heat buildup, though the users of the iConfig will quickly learn that firing both large improved heavy lasers will result in a number much larger than 26. More specifically 36 if you leave the LRM launchers and micro pulse laser out of it. How you wrestle with the temptation of just letting them fly and dealing with the consequences later is on you. He targeted the struggling Cougar and stabbed 2 green beams from his large lasers into the right leg. What little armor remained there vaporized beneath the infernal caress. Myomers snapped and the ferro-titanium bones melted. The Cougar sagged to the right, the mech's weight burying its right arm in the soft ground. The Cougar's pilot, as bold as she was foolish, thrust her mech's left arm at his Timberwolf. The large laser pulsed out a stream of energy bolts that peppered his mech's right thigh. Armor melted, and the monitor image shifted color from green to yellow to warn him of the damage. Alaric rode with the shift in balance caused by the loss of armor, then paused and deliberately took aim on the enemy mech's cockpit. Master of War, page 24, by Michael A. Stackpole. The Cougar X series of mechs were another Clan Jade Falcon experiment into updating the design with new structural features. Though they did prove to be unsuccessful for one reason or another, it was an interesting tangent in development and we're going to include them here today. The first Cougar X looked from the outside similar to the original platform, but inside it had several key differences. The first was the use of inner sphere grade composite structure, which weighed half as much as the standard but took up no critical locations. The downside to this technology was that any incoming damage on it was doubled. In the case of the Cougar X, it shaved off 1.5 tons of mass for use elsewhere. 3.5 tons of ferrofibrous armor provided a paltry defense, and 10 double heatsinks kept the mech pretty cool. The third major change for this machine after the armor reduction was the installation of 7 improved jump jets, vastly improving the mech's agility. Of course, all the get up and go isn't worth much if you have nothing to fire when you get to your destination, so 2 ER medium lasers were split between the arms. Their reliable mid and short range damage was supplemented through the addition of 2 Streak LRM-10 launchers split between the side torsos, each feeding from their own dedicated ton of ammunition. Heat generation wasn't an issue for the Cougar X, though if you're not crazy about improved jump jets, this machine might be too fragile and not sufficiently powerful to fit your needs. I'm not surprised that the Cougar X didn't really work out. The Cougar X2 was another bite at the apple, which again had composite structure, but this time also had a full 8 improved jump jets, pushing the overall movement profile to 588. The X2 carried 5.5 tons of ferrofibrous armor this time, and luckily the standard cockpit returned as well. The weapons loadout was even more Spartan, with just an ER medium pulse laser in the right arm and a single Streak LRM-15 in the left, fed by 2 tons of ammunition alongside it. It's notable that the X2 series doesn't come with the OmniMech case standard, so those 2 tons in the arm are out in the wind. While a little tougher and a little bit more jumpy, the X2 is woefully undergunned to justify its existence. As with the previous entry, it's pretty clear that your average Jade Falcon warrior would look at it and wonder what the point was for this entire venture. The last of the X series of Cougars was the X3, and it veered off course from the other 2. Though the X3 was constructed from a composite frame, no jump jets were added this time, and a heavy-duty gyro was installed, making this mech slightly harder to knock out, The 5.5 tons of clan ferrofibrous armor provided decent protection, and 11 double heatsinks were tasked with keeping it all cool. The X3's weaponry consisted of an ER large pulse laser in the right arm, an ER medium pulse laser right next to it in the same arm, and a Streak LRM-10 launcher set into the left torso and fed from a single ton of side torso ammunition. The two lasers were boosted to a -2 accuracy thanks to the addition of a targeting computer. The Mech's 11 double heatsinks could keep it cool through regular use, though some heat management would be necessary after an alpha strike. The X3 isn't terrible, but combining composite internal structure with a heavy-duty gyro and XL engine is a little befuddling. The most recent official variant on the timeline was designated the Cougar T, and it is the one that's most likely to be filling the ranks of Con GE Chistu's Jade Falcons heading into the IlClan era. Thankfully, it's based on the original OmniMech platform and not one of the X's. Structurally, the only shenanigans take the form of a right torso supercharger, which allows the Cougar to temporarily increase its movement profile to 510 from 580. To boost the mech's ability to get where it needs to be, the Watchdog CEWS was installed into the left torso, which acts as both a standard ECM and a light active probe. Of course, once you arrive at your destination with your arms and legs safely within the battle mech, you're probably going to want to do some shooting. The two ER medium pulse lasers split between the arms and the two Streak LRM-10s set into the side torsos can aid you in that goal. Especially the lasers, as the right torso targeting computer helps them reach that -2 to hit aiming bonus that is sure to ruin more than a few afternoons. The two Streak LRM launchers feed from 2 tons of ammunition split between the side torsos and is probably going to be plenty. While not flashy with gigantic rifles or plasma cannons, the Cougar T is a perfectly serviceable design that could act as a scout, hunter of light mechs, or even just harassing heavier units at distance with those streak launchers. No matter how you use it, it'll demand the enemy pay attention. Though hopefully not too much attention unless the Mechwarrior inside has already lived his or her short and glorious life and is looking for the off-ramp. Now, before we wrap all this up with some boxed wine and a mug that says number 1 Ant, I did want to tackle creating my own totally non-canon and unofficial Mech Frog configuration for our friend the Cougar. I think you may marvel at my restraint this time. Starting off with the right arm, the Cougar MF carries an advanced Tactical Missile 9 launcher along with 3 tons of ammunition. I figure if the arm takes a critical hit, it's a goner anyway, so the ammunition can go along with it, while leaving the mech's soft, squishy torso alone. In the left arm, the tried and true clan large pulse laser melts faces and takes names out to 20 hexes. For finishing off prey or turning foxholes into 5,000-degree cooking pits, 5 micro-pulse lasers were added, 4 in the left torso and 1 in the open head critical location. Finally, to extend the mech's life a bit, as it is likely to be an early target, an anti-missile system was installed into the right torso and fed by 1 ton of ammunition alongside it. The 11 double heatsinks are more than enough to handle general use, with a full alpha strike while running only resulting in 1 heat into the red. I was tempted to shoehorn in jump jets, but we did that last time with the longbow, and I think the Cougar MF is rocking it even without them. If you want to give the configuration a try, I've included the record sheet for it and a Dropbox link in the video notes below. Please let me know how it performs for you. He just stood there, pouring hellish energies into Thaddeus's chest armor. Molten metal ran down the Warhammer's chassis, sizzling and popping as it hit the water. A militia Cougar broke first, bolting for the forest. A dozen emerald and ruby beams impaled the fleeing mech. One moment the Cougar was a war machine of the New Olympia Home Guard, the next it was a sphere of golden light and a roar of terrible, catastrophic destruction. A Bonfire of Worlds, page 43, by Stephen Mohan, Jr. The future of the Cougar looks good, though not for the reasons one might expect. While it is still being produced on Sudeten, Cougars purchased or salvaged from battle fetch a premium by mercenaries and other inner sphere units who are fond of its useful configurations filled with high-power clan tech. When Wolf's Dragoons and the 2nd Robinson Raiders crashed on New Avalon in 3146, a Dragoon Light Star which included several Cougars proved to be the key to victory. Clashing with a lance of gunsmiths protected by their reflective armor, much of the Dragoon Star's weaponry was rendered ineffective. However, the Cougars carried enough secondary weapons to bring down their opponents regardless. So why do we love the Cougar? It's one of those battle mechs which pushes the opportunity cost table to the point where it can make a vastly oversized impact on a fight, or just as easily end up going down early without hitting anything. It's a sort of gamble that your very confident clan Jade Falcon warrior would take, and that's a major reason why it's one of my favorite clan light omnimechs. A Jade Falcon enters a room knowing he or she is better than everybody else there, and so does the Cougar. It's up to skill, fate, and the enemy's nerve to determine if that's true. What do you think about the Cougar? Is there a configuration that you think is the mech in its ideal form? Let me know in the comments and we'll keep the discussion going. Big thanks as always to the MechFrog Discord community that always has such well-painted mechs to share on the upcoming week's video. If you'd like to join, I've added the server link to this week's video notes. Come hang out with us for discussion, memes, and the occasional debate about if Inferno missiles should be measured by number or volume of misery that they can create. If you thought the video was worthwhile, hitting the like and subscribe button lets YouTube's algorithm know that it's worth sharing with others, and you're much more likely to see my nonsense in the future. If you want to go one step further, supporting the channel through Ko-fi or becoming a YouTube member keeps the nonsense flowing. To all those who already have, thank you. It means a lot, and I'll keep working hard to bring new BattleTech content to you each week. With that, I'll say have a great week. Please go out and make the world a slightly better place today and tomorrow.